Are you a hardworking doctor who wants to live a great life without the stress of managing your finances? Training to become a doctor is a monumental task, and as you transition into practice, you face new workloads and major life decisions. Financial planning becomes crucial, but knowing where to start can be overwhelming. That's where Ren Financial Planning comes in. Ren Financial Planning helps doctors use money as a tool to live great lives.
With Ren Financial Planning, you can stop stressing about finances and instead focus on what matters most. They understand the challenges you face, and that's why they're here to handle the details and solidify a financial plan that keeps you in control without having to manage all the specifics. And here's the best part. Ren Financial Planning offers a transparent pricing model. Say goodbye to hidden fees, kickbacks, or commissions. With their flat fee model, you'll know exactly what to expect.
At Ren Financial Planning, it's about more than just your money. Their team is dedicated to helping you make smarter financial decisions that align with your vision of a fulfilling life. So if you're a doctor ready to live a great life without the stress of managing your finances, reach out to the team at Ren Financial Planning today. Click the link in the show notes now to schedule a no-cost triage meeting with one of their planners to discuss how they might be able to help.
Finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
Well, welcome back to another Doctales with Cocktails. Wednesday evening, hump day to get you through the day. Actually, a lot of you are on the East Coast. Day's over, and here we are.
Yes.
Anyway, we've got 2 new spirits to share with you, as well as a little bit on some fun finds that I have. We've got some historical revelations in the medical world that I'm going to share, as well as a really new
I have
bizarre,
a surprise study
really-
for May, and it's groundbreaking.
a surprise study. Okay, and I've
Groundbreaking study.
got it. I have some information that I've been reading on Dr. Peter Attia's book, Outlive. I'm getting through that, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But some information from there that I discovered that might change your health and your life. And what else, Tim? We're going to talk about.
We're going to talk about a new drug scourge
Yes.
in the United States. Like we need a new drug scourge.
If the fentanyl
guess what?
issue wasn't bad enough.
Guess what? It's worse than fentanyl.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
Exactly. So, well, let's get started. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I think
how was your week since last week? Like we haven't seen each other.
Yeah, no, it was fine. As you can see, I have been.
He's been to the
trimmed,
barber,
and
yes.
I love it. It's just
It was hair day for both of us.
Yes, it's like Velcro or a cat's tongue on the side of my head.
Well, so we talked about that earlier. It's not really a Doctales thing, but man, when we move away, all the things that you have to re-establish are such a pain. I think it's worse for women. So, of course, hair stuff, if you're a person that cares about your hair, like I do, because I have a great hair stylist who knows my finicky frocks, and also because my hair would be the color of Tim's t-shirt, which is a splattering of white, black, and brown. Otherwise, I'm not really looking forward to doing that. Finding a new doctor, dentist, accountant.
Well, and then like
I don't know, all of the above.
And then my anal bleaching. I have no idea who's going to do that.
That I'm putting that at the bottom of the list of priorities, as well as fines.
We all have different priorities.
Why don't you share with us who's the recommended anal bleacher in the Western Hemisphere over here?
Right. Yeah, because when you live in a small logging community, there's a high demand, a massive demand.
Actually,
could you sharpen my chainsaw and bleach my anus.
Well, when you're sitting in a log truck for a long time,
You never know what's
you-
going to happen.
you
Yes.
don't want those hairs to get
Yeah.
too
So
long,
there's lots of things. Yeah, it's infrastructure. Just even in
Anal
cars,
surgery.
like just even in my car stuff, like who do you trust, right? Like I have my go-to trust people that I've, accumulated over almost 30 years. And, I guess I'll just get ripped off for the first 4 or 5 years.
Ripped off.
I don't know. So, hey, why don't we hit what you learned from Dr. Attia?
Oh, we're going to kick off with the bang. And okay, so his book is very good. Outlive is all about how to have longevity, but not just longevity. He calls it the 4 horsemen of diseases, which really take people out or cripple them and leave you debilitated and living a not so great life as you get older. Obviously, cardiovascular health, heart attacks and strokes, cancer. The third one being neurodegenerative things such as Alzheimer's and dementia. And the fourth is metabolic disease. Most at the forefront is diabetes and the side effects.
Or as Wilford Brimley says, diabetes.
Anyway, it's the first part is a let's see, medically.
I think you need to turn your phone to like do not disturb. Like this is supposed to be a professional broadcast, and it's like, are you drunk?
I'm in high demand. No, I'm just popular.
Obviously,
Sorry.
people are. Why are they texting you? Don't they know that
anybody heard that? So you can just let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah, I'm gonna start.
Okay, that's
singing
good. Oh, that's
now.
right. Unoffendable.
There.
Unoffendable. I have to get my what would Brant Hansen do?
There you go.
Bracelet out.
I'll see if I can put my do not disturb on just to make you happy. Okay, so the book is pretty heavily dosed at the beginning with all this medical data, but the last third of the book's got very beautiful practical information and tips that I think everybody would love. And so he's focusing on exercise. He calls nutritional biochemistry, weights, cardio, all that stuff, sleep, mood. But one key part is stability. And honestly, I think it's one of the most important. So does he, because as we get older, if you can't do all the things like get yourself up off the floor, brace your body for tripping on the curb.
Yeah, but that's what Life Alert is for. I've fallen and I can't get up.
You're
screw the gym.
You're
I'm going to the bar.
Chair.
I have a button that calls someone to pick my wrinkly ass up. Come on, Peter. You're rich. You can do whatever you want. Stability, whatever.
Yeah, it says
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Because you're just a little weeble. You just wobble and you don't fall down, not like the rest of us.
True. That's largely true. But stability is important because actually falls in the elderly are a major cause of death.
Standing on uneven surfaces, ladders. Well, you shouldn't be on those, but chairs, all that stuff, dizziness. Okay, so my point being, there are some different stability techniques he goes through. And this one that he brought up, I went, what? There's no way. I've never heard of this. It's called toe yoga.
Okay,
and we're going to play you a little video on what toe yoga is.
Toe yoga. Or toga.
Not quite.
Hey guys, Dr. Jackie with Athlete's Potential, and I'm going to go over some toe yoga. All right, so first piece here is we're going to get to moving each of the toes separately. So I want you first to move just your big toe. So all little toes will stay down, big toe up, back down, up, down.
Can you do that, do you think?
I can do that.
This. So you can go 10 reps, you can go for 30
the next
reps,
one,
just to get that big toe separated. As you keep doing it, you will get better.
I wonder if I'm
and then from here, we're going to move just the little toes. So big toe will stay down, little toes up.
Okay, this.
Then down.
Try that and keep your foot on the ground.
Up, down.
And you will rapidly realize.
All right, next one is going to be doing the wave with our toes. So start on pinky toe, and then they'll all go down together. So pinky toe, and one at a time going down, just like so. All right, next one gets pretty challenging. So we're going to use just the pinky toe and the big toe, touch the ground together first, and then put the other toes down. Okay, so it looks like this. This is a little harder. So pinky toe, big toe, and then little toes. Pinky toe and big toe first, so you down, and then the little toes. Pinky toe, big toe, little toes. So that's a little hard to start
So what
separating
she's
all these
doing
movements.
is
If you're really
basically
short pinky
playing
toe,
the
it might be a little
piano with
harder.
her
But do your best.
toes.
Try to separate those two. Moving the intrinsics of our foot to increase our arch. So from here.
Okay, hang on here. Problems. Yeah, that is
Okay.
that sounds really
If
stupid.
you're just listening and you're hearing us talk over it at the same time, the video was showing how to do it.
Until you try doing it and you realize it is almost impossible. And I actually think like as much as I want to mock the hell out of this, I bet there is massive benefit to this.
Well, there is.
Massive benefit. And I'll tell you why I think that.
Well, I'll tell you why there is, because I read the book.
Well, and of course, Peter Attia is one of the 12 disciples.
Well, he's got some experts that come on there and consult with him, and even on his webpage and his podcast. But a lot of what you do when you're standing, lifting weights, they talk about driving your weight through four corners of your foot, actually. So under the ball of your big toe, over by the little toe, and then actually at the back of the heel on both sides. And you should always have them sort of planted and feel like there's four corners in contact with the ground. But a lot of what we do and your weight and energy goes through your foot. Your foot is the first thing that hits the ground. It's the basis for everything.
Well, unless you're really drunk, then it's your head
and your movement. But your big toe also is the key player in balance, pushing up the ground, and so forth. I did that. I tried the toe yoga. My right side is amazing. The left side stinks, and I'm thinking it's probably because I'm right.
It's because you have foot fungus.
Oh, shush.
That's why it stinks.
Not that kind of stink.
There is treatment for that.
My feet do not smell, but my left side is not very coordinated compared to the right.
Pitted keratolysis.
Oh, you're so funny.
Look that up. That's the stinkiest feet in the entire world.
I do not have that. Stop. Stop making fun of my. Okay, you
said stink. I did not. I just was doing my doctorly duty and giving you appropriate diagnosis.
You are gaslighting me.
I am.
Talk about the person.
May does not have stinky feet.
Person with pitted keratolysis.
Yeah, not me. I used to.
Oh no.
My feet used to be horrific.
I'm sure everyone cares.
Horrific.
Anyway, try to do the toe yoga. It's humbling, especially if you have to try to lift your pinky toes off and do the wave with them and all those things. But it's supposed to be really good for people that have plantar fasciitis as well, and just improving your dexterity. I like to work out and do things with weights sometimes with no shoes on. Obviously, nothing heavy that I'm going to drop on my toes, but I think it really makes you grip and use your feet more, and you balance differently. I'm not going to ever go for a walk or run without shoes on like some people do, but I like to do.
My nephew ran the Boston Marathon with no shoes.
So I know people
and then he had to get diverted. You want to talk about bad luck? And then he got diverted to a park because that was the year of the bombing.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Well, didn't he run other years?
No.
With no shoes?
No,
that was the only year?
Only year.
Oh, my. Anyway.
Anyways, yeah. So it's just like, so my brother's sitting in a Starbucks waiting, and all of a sudden the window's like, whoa. Yeah. No, it was unpleasant.
That's a horrible, actually, memory to say you ran the Boston Marathon.
And it blew up.
The bombing.
No, it was wild because I got a text from my brother, and then it texted, and then it went away because they shut off all cell phone communication.
I remember we were working that day,
and it was cool though because
it
was courteous because it was like a proof of life. It's like we're okay.
Weren't you working that day too?
No, I was not. I was going to a wrecking yard to pick up car parts.
No, I remember we were texting, but anyway,
it was really wild.
What can you explain to people why somebody would want to run baretfoot?
I can't.
Exactly.
I can't. It was a fad. It was a thing. It's like getting your.
I guess we would have to have someone on.
It's like getting your tongue pierced. I don't get it. So, but I can tell you this. The toe and foot thing to me is huge, and I'm wondering if it would make a difference doing this, at least in every time my ski season changes and I go from downhill skiing to water skiing, my feet cramp and they hurt like hell. And the reason is that you're doing a balance sport over your feet, which means your toes are gripping. And literally, when I get out of the water skiing, I focus on gripping the front of the ski with my toes because that keeps the nose in the water, and then you get out more efficiently with less stress. And downhill skiing is exactly the same. It's how you weight it. You go from your pinky
I'm sure
to your
if you're a surfer,
big toes.
same thing.
Yeah,
Skateboarding,
and it's like,
any
you know,
foot sports, right?
Right. Like, what do we talk about in surfing and skateboarding? It's toe side and heel side, right?
Hell,
You know, or front side and back side in surfing, toe side and heel side
but
in
honestly, any kind of sport where you're on your feet,
Yep.
basketball, pivoting,
Yeah, all of it.
tennis.
But balance sports, I think, are particularly critical. At least I notice it in my own. Like, if I'm running, you don't think of it like, yes, your toes are gripping the ground like a horsey, but it's not. It's a gross movement. It's not a fine movement.
How are your toes gripping the ground like a horsey?
Because you strike and then you push.
A horsey has no toes.
You push. No, well, they run on their toes. Their hoof is if you look at the.
How do they grip the ground?
Because they have horseshoes on.
You're so full of shit.
The horseshoes are full of shit.
Yeah, I caught you in a big BS.
No,
moment.
but they run on their toes. We don't run on our toes unless we're weirdos. But actually, it's interesting from the knees over toes guy. Striking on at least the front of your foot or the mid of your foot, because it used to be strike on the back, your heel, and roll off because it's dispersing energy. And what it does is it just transmits all the energy to your knees and blows your knees
and your
up.
hips.
Thank you. I have like 30,000 miles of running and blown up knees, so I know exactly where that came from.
Oh, but do you have artificial ones yet?
No, not yet. But
only
my kneecaps need to be replaced right now.
10 times, is it 10? 6 or 10 times your body weight through your joints from running. It's not good. I learned that anyway.
Well, yeah, that's a lot. All right, what do we got here? I'm adding something to the stream, and then I'm going to hit another button. Look at that. This is amazing.
Whitehouse rolls out strategy to battle deadly drug mixture of fentanyl. And look at this new drug, xylazine. So this article came out July 11th. There is a new what do you say? A new kid on the block.
Yes.
And it's coming.
And it's not a boy band.
A neighborhood near you. It is on the East Coast. It's here in our community.
It is in 48 of 50 states. And we have noticed this in our own community that people come in and they're either describing people that they know that have had near-death experiences from overdoses. And then they're like, we took the stuff from the same supplier, and they're testing completely negative for opiates, which means there's some that's fentanyl cut with xylazine, and there's some that's just xylazine with meth and God knows what else in there.
Yeah, so tell them about what xylazine is. Yeah, it's called trank
trank is
trank something else.
Yeah, but it's a horse trank. It is literally horse tranquilizer. I could go through the pharmacology, but it's really unimportant.
No, just explain why it's so deadly.
Because it does exactly what opiates do. It mimics exactly physiologically what opiates do. It drops your respiration, it drops your blood pressure, you get sleepy and you get stoned, and then you stop breathing and you die.
But it doesn't respond
to Narcan. So, which is a problem because you can be literally foaming at the mouth trying to die, and if somebody hits you with Narcan, you will come back to life like Lazarus. You will not with xylazine. And so the problem is, and this is the problem, and this opens an entire can of worms as far as the debate of what do you do with illicit drugs, which is they're illicit. That's the problem. So they're not pharmaceuticals. They're not coming from a pharmacy or a lab that is making it properly. So you don't know what the hell is in anything that you're buying if you're buying it on the street. And so, I mean, it harkens back, and I don't know what to make of this from the perspective of, what Ben Westhoff said. In Europe, they test drugs. So they don't make you pee in a cup to test for drugs. They actually you can go to a rave and take your supply, and then your supply gets tested commercially, and they tell you what's in your drugs. So if you think you're taking ecstasy and you're really taking fentanyl, you're not going to take it because you don't want to die. And then there's this debate, are you encouraging drug use by allowing people to test what they take? Or are you just saving their lives? And the answer is, from my perspective, at least, I think you're saving their lives. I think that if you're so desperate that you're buying drugs on the street, the not being able to test it is probably not a big dismotivator. It's just a gigantic risk of death. So if you actually want to save people's lives, testing the supply is kind of a thing. I mean, we hand out needles, for God's sake, and so, like all over the West Coast. If that isn't encouraging use, but it is decreasing disease, so I understand that argument as well. But there's a point where when the bodies are piling up, if you don't want people to die, there's two things that you do. You let people test the supply, and you close the freaking southern border.
Right. Well,
hello.
Absolutely. I mean, if they're going to hand out needles, hand out a little test kit with it.
Right. I mean, if you're going to have safe injection sites, then have because the biggest tragedy of this, everyone thinks that, the fentanyl epidemic is people in the street shooting up and dying. And yes, that's a large portion of it. But a lot of this is like our friends who lost their child, who was like a normal kid who thought he was getting a Xanax from a friend at a party. And it's a bullshit pill laced with fentanyl, and then he's dead.
Yeah. And like we talked this weekend to some friends who, I mean, everybody's got friends that have, I mean, they've lost 3 friends recently. Family members.
Oh man, they had an Airbnb in Laguna in California, super high end, right? And what my buddy was telling me about this, unbelievable. Like these were people I think that lived like 2 blocks away from them or whatever. So they went down to Laguna, unbelievably beautiful place, one of the most beautiful cities on the West Coast. And they got something. And they were partying, they're having a fun time at the Airbnb on the weekend. And it was like 3 or 4 of them, and they're all dead.
Yeah.
Like that's
sad.
You should be able to go to Walgreens and buy a what the hell is in my pill that I just bought kit. But whatever. I'm done ranting on that. What's the next ranting?
The next ranting? Oh, people want you to continue to rant. Just go for it.
Rant. I have to. Oh, look at this. Okay, so let's go to number 2.
So, what's next on your list?
It's the history of something I don't know. You're surprising me.
The history of something you don't know.
Some guy that looks like Robert Oppenheimer that wrote something on a napkin and then dropped it as a giant bomb.
Well, let me take it from here. So I thought it'd be fun because Tim's usually the historian more than me to cover some other fun medical history and let him listen and try to guess and partake. So I found this really fascinating, and it's actually in line with something that we've been talking about on our podcast recently, which I'm sure he'll figure out soon because he's a good sleuth. And if you've been listening to our podcast,
like tomorrow with the gut microbiome,
maybe you will guess soon as well. So we've been covering a lot of things, big medical advances, especially over the last 100 years, and what has really changed medicine. So we talked about various things, from the defibrillator, talked about germ theory, the sewage treatment plants, and vaccines, obviously smallpox, different things like that. But something that people think of medications on the list as well, but there is another thing that's been very revolutionary in saving. They estimate between 50 to 70 million children's lives within the past 60. It would be the past 60 years now, and it took a little while to get there, and with some stumbling blocks. But any guesses what that would be? Based on the napkin. So we're looking at
a picture
of a gentleman who is really not credited for this discovery.
I think if I had to guess, based on the diffusion barrier, it's GI. It's on a napkin. That's oral rehydration formula that saved gazillions of African children from cholera epidemics.
Very good. So get Jeopardy 101 winner.
Frickin' genius.
Yeah, so let's talk about oral rehydration therapy and why that's a great invention. So years ago in the 1800s, I mean, they started to figure out that putting IVs in people and giving them fluids would actually help save their lives when they were getting dehydrated and had especially diarrheal diseases. And early on in the 1800s and into the 1900s, that was the common way to treat people, was bring them into the hospital, put IVs in, and then they would add saline or salt, sodium chloride, and figured that out. But really, it wasn't until, believe it or not, someone discovered, and that was the picture there is Dr. Robert Crane, I believe is his name. He is a biochemist.
Robert Crane is insane in the membrane.
That discovered the basically how glucose or sugar goes across the intestinal lining along with sodium and gets absorbed and pulls fluid or water in there with it. That discovery, and that's why I put it up there, which was pretty cool because it's written on a napkin. It's a sketch of the sodium glucose pathway, basically, allowed from there, that discovery, the generation of oral rehydration therapy, but it took a bit. So Robert Phillips discovered that, I think it was in the 60s that he came up with that. Up until that point, like I said, they were literally trying.
Was he listening to Jefferson Airplane at the same time? Or maybe Moody Blues. Nights in wet satin, drinking the juice, fixing the diarrhea, smoking a bowl.
Gosh, you know how to just totally derail my train of thought, because right. I'm not a big historian. I don't remember all this stuff. Oh my gosh. So there's some anecdotal evidence of some doctors giving people with mild cholera some types of solutions orally and infusing them with things over the years, water and some sodium chloride. But up until then, it literally was having to put them in the hospital, give them IVs, and that's expensive because not just the cost, but you have to have IV solution, the tubing, it takes up beds in a hospital. And then what happened was, honestly, it was in literally in the 70s when there was the Bangladesh liberation war, where all of a sudden there was a massive cholera outbreak. There was like 350,000 refugees in a camp. And it was, let me find his name because it's hard to pronounce. It's an Indian pediatrician, and his name is Dilip I'm going to butcher his name, Mahalanabis.
It's like, we need some fluid. They are sitting here shitting their brains out.
Yes. So he was a physician who was working along with the Johns Hopkins International Center for Medical Research. And at that time, he had kind of been researching oral rehydration therapies himself anyway, from being from India. But there was this massive cholera epidemic. They had 60 beds. No, it's like 6, I think, beds in their hospital that were full of all these people with severe cholera. They set up all these cots. They had up to 100 people. They're giving these IVs, and all of a sudden they're like, we've run out of IV solution. I've been working on this product. Let's try it. So they literally mixed up powdered with sugar, the sodium chloride, water. They had these ratios, and they had in these packets, and they started distributing it to everybody, and they could give it to parents and nurses and staff to actually literally give it to them, disseminating throughout the camp. They had over 3,000 people with cholera receive the oral rehydration therapy, or ORT, that way. Before that, the mortality rate from cholera was usually 30% mortality rate.
Which is like staggeringly high for any infectious disease.
Yeah. And I think it was even with IV fluid therapy, the cholera rate was 30% mortality. With oral rehydration therapy given early, it was 3.6%.
Yeah, no, that's
staggering difference. Okay.
Yep.
So after that little data compilation, it still took, and he published that, of course, the World Health Organization, and then UNICEF. It took
Who?
them exactly 7 years till they really accepted what he wrote and thought, maybe he's onto something. Maybe oral rehydration therapy is really
Okay,
going
so
to
this
save
just,
lives.
I'm sorry, this
Isn't that
just
nuts?
totally pisses me off because you're giving sugar, water, and salt. Okay, like pretty important things, and you're mixing them in a certain ratio because I assume it's the ratio that makes the difference on
Correct.
whether you absorb
Yeah,
it,
it's a
shit it
certain
out,
right.
puke, whatever.
So the
Right.
important thing for people to know is
But it took
obviously
7 years to do that, and it took them 4 seconds to roll out the COVID vaccine. Yeah, that makes a tremendous amount of sense. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
yeah. So I mean, the cool thing about it obviously is it's low tech, so you can and it costs 50 cents per treatment.
That's why no
Okay.
one knows about it because it doesn't cost $15,000 per treatment.
Yeah, and it was I think 1978 that the World Health Organization
1978.
created the diarrheal disease control program to popularize like giving ORT worldwide, and so now it's throughout
Well,
used
and it was
throughout the
amazing.
world. But it's inexpensive. Obviously, it's easy for they can give it to mothers and just tell them how to give it to their kids early on before
Right.
they get too sick. It's easy to implement, and they estimate if they do the math on over the past, because when they started implementing this in the late 70s through now, probably 70 million lives, at least 50 million
So the
children's
thing,
lives.
but the thing that's crazy about it is they had to. A lot of the education was the mothers would stop giving the kids fluids.
Well,
because that would stop the diarrhea if they weren't drinking.
The other thing that,
and so they're like, no, you understand, your baby dies without fluid, so we give fluid with this extra stuff.
Right.
And then
right, and it goes counterintuitive against a lot of things we do in medicine, because it's actually not solving killing the cholera, but it is replenishing the fluid. So you still get diarrhea, but it's
Right.
rehydrating you and
Yeah, but
preventing you
it's
from
but it's like
dehydration and electrolyte imbalances as well, because now they add potassium in there as well as the sodium. But it is one of those unique things in medicine. It's like a supportive therapy, obviously.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's the thing that people don't understand about virtually all infective diarrheas is they're self-limited illnesses. The reason you get the diarrhea is your body wants to like shit the bugs away.
Yeah.
The problem is that takes a tremendous amount of fluid. So what you do is you need to have enough fluid so you can clean your system out and then not be dead. And so it's fluid it's tons of hydration. You still need electrolytes, obviously. You need glucose, and then you don't die. Meanwhile, you just poop it all out, and then it's done, and you're good to go.
So they estimate that since the 1990s, that there has been a substantial decrease in the number of diarrheal deaths, obviously by about 2/3. And sadly, still, there's still a lot of deaths from
Right, which
in
begs a
developing
point
countries.
from a week or two ago,
And if you
which
look on
is
the map, it's kind of interesting with the countries.
sanitation is the key to health.
Looking on the map, obviously countries like India, Myanmar, and then in South Africa, Namibia. But I mean, even Mexico has huge rates of diarrheal deaths, as well as like Kazakhstan.
I've never heard
Ukraine,
of
and
diarrhea in Mexico.
Of course not.
I've never heard of that.
Said no one. Said everyone.
Said no one
Said
ever.
everyone.
Okay, what are we drinking?
Anyway, so I thought that was pretty cool. Or rehydration therapy, you take it for granted. You got your Gatorade, you don't think about it.
That's a good one. So he basically invented Pedialyte and probably made 2 cents.
Well, no. So the doctor's photo that I put up there was the guy that obviously invented it, but the real hero, who I couldn't find a photo of, was the Indian pediatrician who kind of came up with that.
Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Yeah,
that guy.
Pretty cool.
You drink the fluid. Speaking of drinking fluids, and not a terrible impersonation of an Indian accent.
Okay,
that one
is I am holding up a bottle of M.
Okay, I'll say
Isn't that appropriate?
I will say it
M for May.
Vodka. But it is pronounced. Where is it on here?
It's on the back.
No. Your hand is in the way.
It's pronounced. They can see it. Medoyev.
No. Medoyev vodka.
Okay, you're Russian. You should know.
I should know. You pronounce it with your liver. And it's very good, and it's not overpriced. And it's made in Portland, which is amazing.
In Portland, Oregon, and created in 2002 by partners Lee Medoff and Christian Krogstad at their House Spirits Distillery in Portland, Oregon. And Medoff was brewing up in McMenamins. So
Medoyev.
There you go.
Say it right.
It's actually a very good. One of the guys that I follow looked online, who is a vodka taster connoisseur, ranks it as an 8 out of 10. And it's very clear, crisp, clean, not too oily, just nice.
It's good. And then we have this other, which is Deep Eddy lemon flavored vodka. Wow. That's got real lemons in there. That is one tart SOB, but it is really good.
So Deep Eddy vodka brands, they have a bunch of flavors. They're out of Austin, Texas. I found this one in our local small store. There's everything from grapefruit, lime.
Oh, I'd like to try the
cranberry,
grapefruit.
Peach, ruby red.
Pre-mixed greyhounds.
Tea,
delicious.
Orange. So the lemonade one is very tart. So if you don't like,
no, I'm just fantasizing about the ruby red grapefruit now, because if it's close to this, it's like I'm sold.
They are distilled. It's distilled 10 times. It's made. Of course, they all say gluten free.
It's vodka.
Small batch.
It's gluten free.
Small batch vodka, and
Do you know? Speaking of greyhounds, a greyhound is grapefruit and vodka. When they do the blinded alcohol test where they try to get people drunk without them knowing that they're drinking for like psychology experiments or whatever, or a frat house, the combination to that hides the alcohol taste the most is grapefruit. So they mix greyhounds.
I know that.
And I'm like,
I knew that.
I'm like, how come I can't get into a study like that?
You know what? I knew that before you knew that, because get this, when I went to camp, 6th grade,
they were handing out greyhounds?
The girls brought grapefruits and oranges from home
that they injected.
They had injected with their mother's insulin syringes with vodka. I'm not kidding.
And an insulin syringe full of vodka, that is a new level of desperation.
And I remember them going, want some oranges, want some grapefruit? They're full of vodka. I'm like, ugh.
Did you get wasted in 6th grade?
I didn't have any. I was a good girl.
Good for you.
And they got caught by the teacher. I don't know how they got caught, but they did, and they got sent home from camp.
Maybe they got wasted on oranges. Okay.
I
So I have a surprise study for May, and it makes me really happy.
Did you write it on a napkin?
No, it's right here. Does semen have antidepressant properties?
Well,
are you
depressed or not, Tim?
Yeah. No. So these guys did this study. Okay.
And where and who and when?
It's in it. I'll go through that.
Where and who and when?
The devil is indeed in the details. In a sample of sexually active college women, condom use as an indirect measure of presence of semen in the reproductive tract was related to scores on the Beck Depression Inventory. So basically what they found is that women that didn't use condoms and had sex regularly were less depressed. And they call that semen might have antidepressant qualities. So there's so much bullshit in this study. It's unbelievable. But I put it in, like the confounders are absolutely staggering.
Okay, this is.
But I put it
funny.
in the
category.
The rest
of the study? I want to read the outcomes.
Well, there was like 300. Yeah, there was only 300 people. It was statistically significant, and they tried to, have other confounders or whatever. But the thing I put this study in the studies that are too good to be true category. Because and then you think you have to also look, right? Because we talked about this with Big Pharma. You have to look at who is the sponsor of the study. And this study was sponsored by the creepy guy at the end of the bar.
What are you pointing at me for? Turn that
euphemism.
thumb around.
I'm going to come out because publicly, because I am a care and nurturer. that if I make any advances to you, May, it's because your mental health is my highest priority.
I'm trying to come up with a comeback for that one.
Like, it's just,
I
saw that and I read this and I go, I mean, from a scientific perspective, you do want it to be true, but it's like, okay, well, what's the science? Like, what's the serotonin release from whatever is like, it's just like, it's the king of.
So if a little bit is okay, is more better.
Let's
just like those people that take those milk baths. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm like,
well, in that case, maybe
let's try to replicate it.
Let's go back to the dairy farm, and maybe I could just find a bowl there, and they could sell that.
Yes,
that
could be.
Lather it all over your body like your antidepressant lotion. How about that?
Yeah, but they talked about how there are substances that are absorbed through the female mucosa.
Oh. Mucosa.
Into the bloodstream.
Yeah, we all know where mucosa is. For those of you that don't, it would be in the private areas as well as the mouth and the nose.
They were specifically saying,
obviously, mucosa.
They were specifically referencing private area.
Yeah,
but
I'm just saying where mucosa is.
Right. So I say this for two reasons. One, it's funny because it is funny, and it is too good to be true. And two, it's kind of like I forget who wrote the study where I think he was the former editor of the New England Journal of Medicine or the Lancet or something. And he said, 75% of what's published is just horseshit. Like, it's just poorly constructed and it's just nonsense.
And that's a perfect example.
And so this is a perfect example of when you hear studies say, which means nothing. Like, it means nothing. Because you look at this and you go, okay, women were less depressed that didn't use condoms. Is that because those are people that are generally happy? They're in higher risk relationships, ergo they're less depressed? Is it women that are married and are in long-term committed relationships and therefore they don't use condoms? Is it women that don't hook up with guys at the bar?
Because they're not all hookers.
Because they're actually using appropriate contraception and in long-term relationships. Like this, you could just as easily say semen is an antidepressant as being in a long-term committed relationship is an antidepressant, because maybe that's the case, because it isn't just exposure to bodily fluids. It's
anybody using a condom.
This is a relational activity.
Anybody who uses a condom is depressed. And
no, but this is a relational activity. I know. Like it's like who doesn't use,
according to some people.
Well, whatever.
It's a recreational
activity.
Yeah,
but it still takes another person, generally speaking.
Well, lots of recreational activities take another person, like chess
and tennis.
There you go.
But that's the whole point, right? Like, just think about it in common sense. Like, they're equating condom use with exposure. So, well, who doesn't use condoms? Married people.
Not true. A lot of married people do.
Still do, but people in longer term committed relationships are going to use condoms less than people that are just in hookup culture and sleeping with strangers.
Often.
Right? Generally, I think that's a reasonable generalization. And so there's a gazillion confounders.
Good extrapolation.
But instead of going to maybe the quality of the relationship is what is the antidepressant. No, it's just sperm. Like I hate studies, because this is the stupid bullshit that comes out.
So I just want
studies say
I would like
guys with tennis rackets,
and we would like to know how you found that. Or maybe we don't want to know.
It was a push notification. It was one of these pop-up almost ads on Instagram that was like weird discoveries, right? And then it said this, and I go, okay, I got to go look and see what the actual source document is. And I look at it and I go, well, this is just stupid and idiotic. And I'm going to make fun of it because it's stupid and idiotic. But at the same time, like, you just like,
there you go.
Studies show people in the hospital generally die when the lights are on. Yeah, because the lights are on all the time in the hospital.
I'm sorry. What? Yes.
Yeah, but it's just like, there's a point where you're just like, just shut up, okay? Like, just shut up.
Well, it's been pretty silent on the airwaves here, other than Barb has at some point agreed with us. I think it was back when we were talking about the opioid issues. Otherwise, our comment gallery is pretty silent tonight, and that's okay because
it's okay. You can listen to it on Monday morning as you drive to work.
Don't crash when you listen to the semen study.
I have a reason. You come home, you tell your wife.
Or while you're doing toe yoga while you're driving.
I'm a caring nurturer that wants to help your mental health whilst doing toe yoga.
Okay, so what have we learned this episode? Maybe you'll be happier if you don't use a condom and do toe yoga and drink your Gatorade.
And don't take illicit drugs because that shit'll kill you. Yeah, that's it. That's done. We could have just done it in like 42 seconds.
We could have.
It's not as fun.
It's not quite as fun. So, what's out in the podcast this week? Should we give them a little teaser?
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Mondays is the repurpose when the Doctales with cocktails from the week before comes out. Wednesdays are Truth Bomb. And this week's is all about forgiveness. Came out this morning. We talk all about forgiveness. So far, we've been doing kind of one-word topics. And they're philosophical and just our opinions on how we have looked at things over the years. So forgiveness is this week's topic. They're kind of fun, 10 minutes, no big deal. Tomorrow, Thursday, is our regular episode, interviews, and we are going to bring you Dr. Sabine Hazen again tomorrow. Yay. I love Dr. Hazen. She is the shit doctor extraordinaire. She's written the book, Let's Talk Shit, and she is an expert in the gut microbiome. This week, she talks a lot about one of the recent studies that she did, that she published, that she won an award for at a poster and a conference. And her study went under publication and then got retracted and pulled down
because it had the word ivermectin in it.
Yes. So she
Can you imagine such filthy language?
Talks about how she's a very well-renowned, trained researcher, years of research under her belt, and how, we talked about it, how studies are, there's a lot of crap studies, how people decide what gets published, and how sometimes good studies don't get published. And she talks about maybe letting all the studies, good or bad, be published and letting people decide. Anyway,
just like the great interview. Is semen and antidepressant study.
She's always a delight to have on the show.
Yeah, she is. So, and she might be on the show again if she doesn't listen to this episode.
Anyway, other than that, we've always enjoyed hearing your comments, replies, and sign up for our newsletter, Truth Serum, which comes out on Mondays. You get a little bit of some fun writings and insights that you don't hear here, as well as some fun photos of what's going on. So check that out on our website. You can sign up there for the Truth Serum newsletter. And as always, thanks for sticking with us, listening, and we hope to see you guys again next Wednesday or on any of the other podcasts. And now we'll end the show with a special shout out to our sponsor, Wren Financial Planning. Take control of your finances and live your best life with the team at Wren Financial Planning. They handle the details while you focus on what matters. Transparent pricing, personalized solutions.
Schedule a no-cost, no judgment, no obligation chat with one of their planners now by clicking the link in the show notes. Your financial well-being is their priority.
Bye.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS-free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.